You know what? I'm just going to fire from the hip early and give you an upfront verdict. It's going to be a straight shoot, partner, because I've been lucky enough to have played this game, nay, existed in this all-consuming cowboy experience for a full 10 days before launch. That said, at the time of publishing, I think it's fair to say that my appraisal is going to be more accurate than most, because my dead eye is very much open on what Red Dead Redemption 2 is all about. I can confidently say to you now that this is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. In time, I think a lot of you are going to agree with me. Now, as a semi-jaded connoisseur of games, that's not a claim I'd ever make lightly. After 30 years of gaming, I've seen it all. I've played a heap of titles that belong in a tier that I'd call bottom of the barrel. A whole bunch more could be grouped in the OK, corral, and then there's a much more exclusive herd of must-buys that are worth a few dollars more. Red Dead Redemption 2 exists in the quality strata above all of these. It's got magic in it, and it pushes our medium forward. It's definitely in my top 3 of all time. If you're a console gamer, I think it's pretty much essential. Rockstar's latest is a watershed moment for 2 reasons. First of all, this developer has delivered an unforgettable experience in terms of storytelling and sheer player immersion. Plus, Red Dead Redemption 2, man, it's just a marvel purely from a technical and visual standpoint. Let's lasso the narrative first. Confusingly, what we have here is a sequel that's actually a prequel to 2010's Red Dead Redemption. Now, though that title was slightly tarnished in its infancy by runaway bugs and a bit of behind-the-scenes controversy, it patched into being one of the all-time greats of that generation. It chronicled the life and times of John Marston, an ex-outlaw and reformed family man forced to hunt down his former comrades in the Dutch Vanderlyn gang. While you don't need to play Red Dead Redemption to get your bearings in this sequel, I would personally recommend you do it. Backwards compatibility on Xbox One X with 4K support is currently the best way to do this. I also hope Rockstar decide to reissue that game for current gen, possibly as a remastering. The game we're talking about today is set decades earlier, when Dutch, John, and the dozen or so crew members were operating during their final days. It's a Reservoir Dogs sort of intro. An unseen score has gone wrong, and the gang has been chased by the law into the extreme wilderness during winter. From here, you slide into the spurs of Arthur Morgan, a grizzled second-in-command outlaw to Dutch, who is in fact a charismatic leader and a father figure who's constantly chasing a mirage that is the last big retirement score. As fans of the original game already know, the loyalty of this group is sorely tested as their fortunes decline. And by God, you'll care about these people during the hard times. Over the course of 50-odd hours, Rockstar will make you fall in love with pretty much every member of Arthur Morgan's dysfunctional family of persecuted strays, grifters, and dyed-in-the-wool sociopaths. Because nestled in between some of the best heists and set-piece moments in action-adventure gaming are these incredibly tender scenes where you're just chilling out with the gang in your ever-evolving campsite. You can socialise as much or as little as you want, of course, and that's using the new dialogue options, which boil down to greet and antagonise, diffuse or intervene. That said, I think even the most action-oriented, habitual cutscene skipper will stay their thumb, because the cockles of their hearts are going to be slowly infiltrated by these folk. When the hammer does fall on some of them, permanently, it'll happen in an instant, and the shock is going to be real. It's been days, and I'm still mourning a couple of them, to be honest. You know, sort of beating myself up for not taking them up on an optional side jaunt. So my advice to you would be, just take your time. In the happier times, Arthur Morgan participates in some of the greatest Western shenanigans imaginable. It's like the best GTA 5 heists have been taken to the next level here, thanks to the addition of incredibly deep horsemanship, satisfying gunslinging, and that indefinable cowboy swagger cool. Expect to rob stagecoaches, bust Peckerwoods out of jail, hit banks, raid steaming locomotives, get your Casino Royale on in a riverboat, and so much more. The broad strokes of all of these missions are pretty much set, but the variation allowed by your choices, and the Rage Engine's phenomenal AI and Euphoria animation system, makes for some pretty unique outcomes, and paydays. Basically, if you do it bad, you're going to get paid terribly. It's worth mentioning that, obviously, the olden days setting affects the gunplay and your getaway options considerably. Forget the street-spraying weapons of GTA 5. Morgan is packing pistols and revolvers, rifles and repeaters. That means low-count magazines and longer reload times, which, in turn, equals intensely personal gun battles. This is especially true when you factor in the cost of what's within range of your enemies. It might be that beloved horse that you took the time to rename Crudler and spent double-digit hours bonding with. The stakes can be pretty high in this game. But if you do insist on skinning your smoke wagon, Best take the time to put your mask on to minimise identification. You should also keep Morgan's 3 stat cores in peak condition, and you really ought to make those crucial shots with the slow-mo Deadeye system. Alternatively, maybe seek to verbally defuse fights before they spark off, or prevent further backlash from the law dogs by threatening or eliminating any witnesses to your crimes. Whichever way you do go, know that Red Dead Redemption 2 will reward players with better results if they maintain their weapons and mount, not to mention their facial hair and body odour. Your soul is going to need some upkeep too. Morality choices will shape Arthur Morgan's path in this game in very meaningful ways. You can always take a break from the heavier decisions in the main thread to go sniff out a bit of side action. There's a ludicrous amount of things to do, and that 50 hours I stated does not include any of the stuff that I'm going to mention here. You could tinker with your guns to OCD Texan levels at a smith. You could micromanage your stable of thoroughbreds, go fishing, win big at poker, dominoes, blackjack. You could even give yourself an extreme manicure with 5-finger fillet. If that isn't good enough, go rustle some cattle or break in some wild mustangs. In true Rockstar fashion, each of these seemingly minor pursuits has been polished to the point where they could be transplanted out, printed on a disc, and sold and become a serious threat to whoever is the king of that particular niche genre. For example, the hunting and tracking experience in this game is so solid, whoever owns the Cabela's license really ought to be soiling their britches right about now. It's that good. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to side diversions. Large chunks of Red Dead Redemption 2 take place in pristine wilderness, but Rockstar is constantly nudging these dynamic moments into your path. You might need to save somebody from wolves, rescue an Irish outlaw from a literal paddy wagon, suck the venom from some woody wannabe who actually has a snake in his boot, or just aid some crazy lady who's into dinosaur bones. Honestly, if you're a stop and smell the roses type, Red Dead Redemption 2 is your Graceland, your Floriade. This is easily a triple-digit hour experience if you're a completionist. And when you couple that to this forthcoming multiplayer add-on that we've yet to see, the value for money here is just off the charts. This is especially true if you're a graphics-motivated gamer. If you're an avid photo mode snapper, you'll be found months from now, disheveled and malnourished. Your hard drive will be filled to capacity with JPEGs, your main story progress will read 10%, and you'll be perfectly happy about this. Because this game is a looker, designed to completely fool us into the authenticity of the sandbox. Every time you push this simulation, it pushes right back, because no expense has been spared, and no corner has been cut. Thanks to the power and seamlessness of the Euphoria animation system, you will become Arthur Morgan, and you're going to inhabit Rockstar's interactive Westworld. And you had better believe that these violent delights have violent ends as well. I barely have the words to tell you how vast and breathtaking this play space is, and I can't really explain the voodoo that Rockstar has chanted to make current-gen consoles output these sorts of results. Better yet, all this prettiness is backed up with stability and fine craftsmanship. It's like the bigwigs at Rockstar had a personal vendetta against Pop-In and other rough edges. You just don't really see it. And look, I'm not saying that this game is perfect. I mean, I had a bit of a list going on and I saw like 3 incredibly minor sort of eyesore bugs, but that's in 50 hours worth of gameplay. For the overwhelming most part, what we have here just exudes polish and care. In comparison, Red Dead Redemption 2 is just embarrassingly better than the last sandbox I was in, and not that long ago, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And I gotta say that I can scarcely imagine how much more gorgeous this could all be if Rockstar allowed it to be run on a modern PC. Hopefully that does come to pass, but it's hard to be disappointed with what's in front of us right now. This review can't be closed without me mentioning to fans of Red Dead Redemption's Mexico moment, and if you didn't play that game, it was sort of this unforgettable instance when Jose Gonzalez's Far Away filtered in over the audio. Those people who loved that are not going to be disappointed here. I counted 3 instances where licensed tracks just organically blended in and tugged on these heartstrings that I didn't even know that I had. And even outside of the emotionally climactic moments of Morgan's tale, the soundtrack delivers top-notch ambient accompaniment. I'm not one for buying OSTs, but I think this is probably going to be my first. It's on the Christmas list. Speaking of purchases, you'd be nuts not to saddle up for Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar's first truly current-gen game will blow your mind quicker than 6 cylinders worth of hollow points, fan-fired, at your face. Technically unparalleled, beating with an emotional core, and overflowing with emergent gold up in them thar hills. Rockstar has gone the country mile with this, and then they figured they'd go another one, just for good measure. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Be sure to check out the channel for a couple of other videos. I've done some of the coolest moments in the game. They don't have cutscenes, so you know, you can sort of save yourself some spoilers. And if you're just after an idea of how the world is, you want to see someone ride from one end to the other, yeah, I did that as well. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and as always, I appreciate it.